Hi there, this is just a quick update from me in audio form rather than a Facebook post with so many paragraphs. I'm doing a short version of this and a long version. This is the quick version. If you can only take my voice in swallowable chunks, this is the one for you. So, this week I found out that I have completed my course that I went to London last September to do the music production and sound engineering, the higher education certificate in that subject at Point Blank Music School in the borough of Hackney. It's kind of in inner northeast London, very, very kind of inner northeast London, not far from centre really, especially from the Liverpool Street area, if you know that. So I found out that I've managed to complete the course. It was 3 terms. The first was from September to December last year, the second was from January to March this year, and the third from April to June. So I spent a few weeks just waiting on my results, my final results of this course. It's a pass for the whole thing, so obviously really cool. Can't even begin to say really. Obviously very pleased about that, but it's not just a case of being pleased, it's on many levels. It certainly answers a question that I was asking myself early last year in 2020. Should I leave the work and present security that I have in Southampton to go up to London to do a music production course, a higher education music production course? And of course, once the pandemic came in March of last year, we all know about that. Yeah, you know about that. Obviously that raised the stakes more so because London became the epicenter quite early on of the pandemic. I don't know if you remember, if you can cast your minds back to spring of last year, 2020. London was very much the epicenter for a while, with the initial plans for the Nightingale Hospital and so on in that first wave. Also, I lacked a certain qualification that I would need to get on the course, and that was the equivalent of an English GCSE from school. I didn't have that grade. My schooling was a story in itself, but I didn't come out with many worldly impressive qualifications. I just needed to earn an equivalent qualification, so I did 2 English related exams online in June of last year and managed to pass those really well. And so that was the last major step of a sequence of events that enabled me to get on that course in the first place, the music production course. And so in late September last year, I went up to London. Again, there is many stories within the stories and so on, but I won't go into depth here. But so I went up for that purpose, and I've now found that I've managed to complete the course. There are 2 modules per term, so 6 modules over 3 terms. In the first term was Introduction to Production and Music Composition, because you see, each module had associated assignments to complete. Really interesting projects, but with a lot of challenging criteria to meet, and a lot of uncertainty over whether you'd really meet those criteria, and it all took a lot of hard work. But they were really interesting projects, in musical terms and so on. But my grades for those first 2 modules in that first term were Introduction to Production was a merit, which was in the 60s percentage, and music composition was in the 70s percentage, which was a distinction. Yeah, that was a pretty good start for me. In the second term, which was, certainly in teaching terms, was practically entirely online. I don't know if you remember January of this year. Can you remember the chaos? So obviously that would have had an effect on things for sure for every student, I'm sure. In that term, I managed to get, it was sound engineering and sound design. For the sound engineering, I got the weakest of my 6 grades, and that was a high pass. That was in late 50s%, which was okay, but that was my weak link really. Maybe in a way it was always going to be, because that's very, very technical, and I'm not quite wired that way. More sort of imaginative, creative than technical. I'm not an engineer. So all things considered, that was okay, it really was. But the sound design was a merit, that was in the 60s%. So that brings us to the third term, this past term, still quite recently. I had the art of mixing and music industry. The art of mixing I managed to get a distinction, like with music composition in the first term, and music industry was a very satisfactory merit. So those were my grades. I just want to thank anyone who has been praying for me or wondering how I've been doing. Sometimes I haven't had much time, or sometimes not much energy, mental energy, to sort of put lots on Facebook. But I am here. I'm still here on the face of the earth, as are you. Through all this jazz that we've been experiencing for this past 16 months or so. Still here, doing all we can in the good fight. We just still aim to be light in the darkness, however much we sometimes don't manage to do that. But I know we're all human here, and it's been an interesting time for everyone. So, but yeah, I just want to really thank you before I go off on all sorts of tangents. I just want to thank anyone who's been praying for me, thinking of me, and wondering, what on earth is Glenn R. Levitt doing? So, yeah, for anyone who is wondering how I've been doing and what's been going on with me, yes, I've now found that I've completed my course. I got the confirmational email, which was nice, but the pandemic being what it is, there can't be a graduation ceremony for a year, sadly. And who knows how things could be in July 2022. I mean, that's a year away. I don't know about you, but for me, every year is a step over the previous one. It's a progression. It's like it's like a staircase. It's like a ladder. I'm not in the same place from one July to the next. I'm just not. Yeah, we're always moving forward, or hoping to be moving forward, and that's the way in which I've been moving forward this past 10 months, I guess. 9-10 months. If you take in that whole thing, certainly since I went to London anyway, although I was actually starting the procedures for this, for the application for this course back as early as towards the end of January into February last year, before we were even very affected by the pandemic. But I really wish you well, and I just want to thank you. Now, on worldly paper, the obvious question would be, what's next? But in the name of process, journey, and faith, I have to say that it's an unusual blessing and challenge to be a 45-year-old guy with what is effectively a blank page to be written on. And if the pages of one's life are within a book, whether it be yours or mine, the ultimate question has to be, who is ultimately the author of that book? And the answer to that question will surely affect our approach to whatever is next. Thanks, and God bless.